side. And I'm talking about Farmala. Ladies and gentlemen, joining me in studio now is the acting. You still acting?
Yes.
You still what? You're going up for an Academy Award? What, an Emmy? Okay, let me take you off the spot. Let me behave. We have Miss Farmala Jacobs with us. Good afternoon, Farmala.
Good afternoon, Petra. Thank you for having me.
You know how much work you done doing your little life? I mean, just thinking about you sometimes get me tired, and not in a bad way, because the work continues to be done day in, day out, day out. So let me begin, ladies and gentlemen. We have the acting for how long? How long have you been acting?
It's going to be, it's 4.5 years.
Okay. I'm going to have someone about public service regulations some other time, because we're going to have to discuss that. But with me in studios now, we have Miss Farmala Jacobs, the acting, what is it, director?
Yes.
Of the Department of Gender Affairs within the Ministry of Social Transformation. And we're going to be talking about the work of the Director of Gender Affairs, and then moving into the latest project that is coming up. Farmala, tell us about Farmala. I'm sorry, I didn't even tell you we were going to do this. I mean, we need to know who we have in such an auspicious and significant position. Farmala, tell us about you.
So I think that I am a very fun person. That's how I want to describe myself, because I'm always looking for, a light moment or opportunities to laugh. I enjoy listening to music a lot, especially reggae music. I enjoy reggae music.
Take away Antigua can.
I love soca too, but reggae is my first love. I enjoy dancing. That's something that I do a lot.
Okay, you get back Antigua can.
There you go. So I enjoy dancing and just communicating and socializing with people, my family and my friends, and community on a whole.
Okay, so that's the social side.
Yes.
You are still in your starring role, the head of the Gender Affairs. What's your academic and professional background? Okay,
so my academic background, I did my first degree at the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill. It is in labor and employment relations. So that was my first area of study. And then I did my master's with the Walden University in public policy. And my research paper basically focused on the work that I currently do right now, which is mainstreaming gender across public policies and so forth. I also completed a professional certification with the University of the West Indies Institute for Gender and Development Studies in Gender and Development. And in terms of just my background, I think, and I've always, spoken about the importance of volunteerism, because that is basically what started my interest in the area of gender. So while I was at the Antigua State College as a student, we had a Caribbean Studies SPA to do, and we had to look for a problem within society that we wanted to address. And so my issue was the lack of women in leadership. And so
what year was this?
That was in 2006.
Oh, you were in good times. Carry on.
I know, right? But still, so I wanted to look at the lack of women in leadership in politics, not just in Antigua, but in the Caribbean. And so that basically brought my attention to the Directorate of Gender Affairs and its work. At the time, the director was Ms. Sheila Rosso. And so I became a volunteer and then later on an intern at the Directorate of Gender Affairs, where I was able to spend some substantial amount of time just contributing to the work as a youth. So I spent a lot of time doing that, even when I came back from university during vacations and so forth. I also was a National Youth Ambassador. So I volunteered in that capacity with the youth department with the portfolio for gender and development.
You were setting this up a long time.
Well,
you didn't know. You weren't aware, but it was okay. Let me rephrase that. The stage was being everything coming back to acting. The stage was being set for a long while.
Yeah. So, as the youth ambassador responsible for gender, of course, that opened a lot of opportunities for me to partner with other youth groups and young people in Antigua and Barbuda to bring gender issues to the forefront, and also on a regional stage as well. I think I will leave it there because my volunteerism work really just expanded from there to include regional and international initiatives. So I'm a part of regional and international youth networks, and I've assisted with the creation of some of these networks. So, for example, the Caribbean Regional Youth Council is one network that I assisted, along with the other youth councils across the region to establish and so forth. So there are a number of initiatives that I gained a lot of leadership experience from that I'm really grateful for.
So you are one of those young people, because you're still young. You look youngish. You're youngish.
I think
You're
so.
You're
I'm
under
youngish.
35.
Yes.
You're under 35.
I am.
With all them things that you done do, you still under 35. You just describe 50 years of work there, woman. Let me. Ladies and gentlemen, and this is one of the beautiful things about what we've been able to do as a community. More and more of our young people have been able to rise to the level of leadership and to significantly impact you. If you were able to just listen to her portfolio, that's a very extensive portfolio, most of it driven by volunteerism, which is why, and I'll say this for her, not for her, on me, on my behalf, I don't understand why she's still working on this. Emmy, woman, it's not you. They're policymakers. It's time for the acting, but never mind that. Yes, so Farmala,
Yes.
tell us now about your work at the... No, change that question. Gender affairs. When we hear gender affairs, since Gwentong days, we hear women's affairs.
Mm-hmm.
Is it fair to equate women's affairs with gender affairs when we hear the Director of Gender Affairs?
So I think the work for the Women's Desk, as it was formerly known from since it was established, has expanded way beyond what was the initial intention or the initial mandate for the Directorate, and just broadly when it comes to addressing women's issues. And so when we talk about gender and when we refer to the Directorate of Gender Affairs, we're talking about taking into account and considerations the unique needs, concerns, and roles that the various populations in Antigua and Barbuda experience and face. So we're talking about women as a group, we're talking about men, we're talking about children, both boys and girls, we're talking about vulnerable populations like persons with disabilities and so forth. Now, when we say gender...
Sounds very broad, like you're covering everybody and everything.
And that is something that a lot of people don't understand about the work and the analysis that we put into trying to influence the policy making process, and as well as legislative frameworks, because when they hear gender, there is this automatic notion that we're only referring to women.
Right.
What I must say, however, which is very important though, is traditionally we know that women have been impacted disproportionately on a number of fronts, socially, politically, economically, and so forth. There have been a number of inequalities or indicators that continue to show us the inequalities in these areas. And so we do have specialized programs, because a part of our mandate is promoting gender equality and gender mainstreaming, and also the empowerment of women, because women as a group
are the
to
most
be
marginalized, disadvantaged,
and then we break that down further to look at vulnerable populations, because we know that persons are affected in different ways. So women as a group might be affected generally, but then when we break it down further to look at women who are head of single headed households, women who are persons with disabilities and so forth, we know that there are further marginalization that could occur, vulnerabilities that they could be exposed to.
Okay. So imagine then, given your broad mandate, well, I am saying that based on your description, that you have a woman who is a single mother who has a disability. How does she fit? Or basically, she would be covered by just about every program that you would have.
Basically, we do put on a number of programs, but understand too that most of our work that we do on a day-to-day basis might be work that the public might not necessarily see. So don't put on. So for example, when we say we mainstream gender, or our mandate is about mainstreaming gender, it means that we're looking at policies across all of the government sectors, and we're working along with our government colleagues and stakeholders to see how they can take the considerations of that woman who is also disabled into account when they're putting together a sector plan for education, when they're putting together a social protection program, when they're putting together a youth program, when they're offering an agricultural program. So we are basically working along with government departments across the board to understand and to ensure that gender is mainstream into all of the work that they do. A part of that is our work for building the capacity of these persons have been expanded. So let me give you an example. Last week, we hosted a workshop in collaboration with NODS, the National Office for Disaster Services, and the UN Disaster Risk Reduction Office. And basically what we did is we looked at how should gender be mainstream into early warning systems. A lot of people might say, what does that have to do with anything, right? But a part of the work that we do is to make those linkages and make the connections to show people the importance of understanding that we need to include communities into every initiative that we are planning for.
Hold on. I'm going to do that. So let me go back. You held a workshop to facilitate, my words, gender mainstreaming in disaster
risk reduction and response. So for example, the early warning system, so when NODS
no, that's not the part that I'm trying to figure out. How is gender not mainstreamed in, because you said gender, so this is not, I'm confused. And I'm not being difficult.
Break it down. No.
Yeah, when you say, why would this whole notion of gender be an issue for disaster management? Okay. Risk mitigation.
Yes. So when we think about it, we have to think about it realistically, Petra. So if you're a community person, I know that for sure.
Retiring.
And so when you look at a community setting, you know that one approach cannot be applied for everyone in the community.
Agreed.
And that is what the work of gender is about too, you know. So we cannot use a broad brush approach in policy making to address all situations. Neither can we make assumptions that by doing something, the outcomes will be great. We also have to take into account risk factors, safety concerns, prevention concerns. Disaster risk reduction also includes, or planning for disaster also includes, designing shelters, ensuring that persons are placed into settings where they're comfortable, where their privacy is maintained.
Okay, you win. I follow. As you spoke just now, I'm imagining from my days as a shelter manager.
Yes.
And I'm remembering at Villa School, there was just one open space. You did what you had to do where you could. Yeah. Okay, carry on. So I get the value of something like that now in the whole process of, but what's the feedback? Do you get a pushback from the agencies that you work with?
In some instances we do, and in other instances we don't. So we have, and what is great about the work that we do
and
as
then
well.
little you pushing this, well, I remember those days. Yes.
But I must say, a lot of our government colleagues are coming on board and understanding very fully what is required and what is expected, because we're moving towards sustainable development. We all know that the Antigua and Barbuda is one of the countries who agreed to and signed on to the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. And that calls for the full integration of gender, right? There is a Sustainable Development Goal, which is Goal 5, which calls for the full integration of gender equality across all of the 17 goals.
Right.
And so as we begin to, or as we continue to develop our country, it is important for us to ensure, as we engage with donors, as we engage with the international community, that we maintain our commitment to gender equality. And I think that has helped to give our work some backing, because when we get development projects and so forth, one of the components might be that we have to ensure that gender is integrated. So for example, there is a roadworks project presently that is carrying on in Antigua. We're part of that project as well. So we provide support to the public works, the project implementation unit, to ensure that gender equality is mainstreamed.
Every time I get you just throw me again.
I know.
What kind of support would public works need to ensure this gender equality? Wow. Please help me understand.
We're going to invite you to some of our workshops as well, because I think you can help us to take the message further. So when we look, first of all, you have to look at who will be displaced by the roadworks project. Who do we see mostly selling at the side of the roads?
Vendors, right?
Okay. Both men and women.
Both women and women,
but
yes.
Who are most likely women in some
Single
instances?
females with children to go to and from school.
Okay. You have that. Then you have the whole issue of mobility, right? So persons might no longer be able to take the path that they would normally take.
Right.
So you would have to create divergence and so forth for persons. So the whole issue of safety comes into account and question as well for the movement of people. Then you might have to relocate persons, right? We've not had that issue in this project, but we've had it in other projects. So persons might have to be relocated to somewhere else temporarily until
and so your role will be to make sure that all the
take
sensitivities are covered, whether it be something as simple as ensuring proper bathroom facilities. I get in it.
Yes, and then sometimes we know that these contracts would empower local people, but we also know that it brings in a lot of people to work as well with different cultures, right, different backgrounds, different understandings of, you know, what the legal...
Right.
Yes. So we too would have to ensure that there is high sensitivity or high training for them to take into account and understand the local and cultural context in which they would work, which includes the prevention of sexual harassment within the workspace.
Right, because what you think might be acceptable may not necessarily be acceptable here, or what we think is acceptable, hey, it might not be acceptable to them.
And we also might have women working as well within that setting, because we know that we want more women to be attracted to construction and to work within those fields as well. And so we need to ensure that we put into place prevention of sexual harassment, that we take into consideration discrimination that could happen within those types of jobs. So what we did though for that project, we created some guidelines, and also guidelines for how to attract more women and to train women into the construction area as well. So we do I'm not going to call another sector for fear that we might have to go through.
No, I'm getting it.
Because I also want to talk about the campaign. Yeah?
Yes, no, I'm gonna steal you a little over 5:30. Go ahead. This is educational stuff.
Yeah, but we do a lot of that, and that is why I say that the public might not always see that side of the work, right?
Let me pause you for a minute. When I heard about, because I did hear that the Department of Gender Affairs is getting involved in the Public Works project, and as the Road Works project, I was like, okay, they're looking for women to get work. I didn't realize there was all this, and I don't think many of us appreciate the scope of what goes into gender affairs and gender matters. We touched on women, and we touched on disabled and so on. My favorite people. Good afternoon, Jerry. Men. How I don't know how to put this. How does gender affairs, start there. How does the department work along with men in terms of issues such as them feeling marginalized and being willing to speak up on matters where they may be feeling shortchanged?
Yes. So basically, we have a number of initiatives. The first one is, I think it was 2 years ago, or maybe a year and a half ago, we launched a program called MAPS, which is the Men as Partners program. And basically, the Men as Partners program was geared towards training about 20 men within the public who expressed an interest in gender equality and promoting gender. And so we trained these men in collaboration with UN Women, which is the entity responsible for gender equality globally, to learn some of the practical skills and tools that can be used to advance the gender equality mandate, but also to understand the unique realities of men and women as partners for development. Okay. And so once we would have trained these sets of the first cohort, what we did is we used some of the men from that group to assist us to go out into the communities to train men and women within the community settings. So that was one of the initiatives that we put on. A second initiative is the Men Engage Summer Institute, which is basically Engage.
Oh, Engage. Oh, sorry.
Summer Institute, which is basically something that we launched in the summer last year, and just to pilot it to see how boys would respond. We had about 25 boys participated in the program, which was really great. And we spent about 2 weeks with the boys, just going through the ways in which they've been socialized, going through the issues that they have experienced at the community level, at the school level, at the church level. And then we allow them to create the outlet that they would like to use to advocate on their own behalf for their own issues. So we got a lot of rap songs. We got a lot of poetry. We got a lot of, just expressive arts at the end of the session, which was
Do you have a
really good.
report of like the
Yes.
issues that they would have brought up?
We definitely do. And then I would like to fast forward to last evening, because we know yesterday was International Men's
Yes,
Day.
yes.
And so for the first time in Antigua and Barbuda, we hosted a panel and a film screening, which basically looked at assessing some of the ways in which we define masculinity within our society. And so we showed a film that was produced and recorded in the United States, but we also made the connections between our local context and the United States. It wasn't very different. Last night we had 5 panelists, 4 men, 1 woman, and it was very interesting to hear some of the panelists and even the boys from the audience share the ways in which they have felt marginalized by other men, by other boys, by women, and by girls within our society. The ways in which they felt as if they had to always be performing their masculinity, to be, a part of the group, to feel manly, to feel as if they're really a man. And that was something that I think a lot of us left the room feeling committed to change. And I was very moved when I saw the dialogue between the panelists and the younger boys in the audience, because they actually spoke up and asked questions. What should I do as a young man in a community who...
This was a closed door setting?
It was,
oh,
yes.
Okay.
All around me, I'm seeing this, I'm seeing crime, and I'm just trying to hold steady.
You just want to get by.
I'm just trying to get by, but how do I do that without being influenced? And it was really interesting to hear the exchange on those topics in the room. It was also very urgent, but important to also listen and hear some of the coping mechanisms that men and boys have had to use.
Successful coping or
Definitely
dangerously
not.
coping?
Very dangerous, which is why I said urgent, right? Very dangerous coping mechanisms when they're not performing the type of hyper-masculine expectations that we set for boys in society. And so when we made the connections between the ways in which we socialize boys and what we eventually see happen in society, and how that leads to the imbalance of power and to further inequalities between men and women, but also men and men. It's just very interesting. And I think it calls to us a very urgent agenda for us to pursue as a nation and as a community.
A question on that. We're going to turn soon, but a question on that. So when you have these workshops and these forums, because you would have controlled groups in those, how does the department then transfer the knowledge that you would have gathered and the information you would have gathered into impacting the wider community? Are there mechanisms? Is this a work in progress? How do we do that?
What we would normally do is we use the experiences, and that is why, sometimes people would say, oh, just come and do a talk. Say, no, we want to understand the unique circumstances, the dynamics of the group. How many men will be present? How many women will be present? Will there be children? Because the reason why we need all of this information is that we don't just show up and determine that once we came and did a presentation, it was impactful. We just did something. We try as much as possible to engage in continuous work and partnership. So last evening, we would have recorded some of the outcomes that came from the dialogue. And so we would use that to inform our next set of sessions, especially our sessions around engaging men and boys. We had an initiative called the Community Classroom. And we used the Community Classroom as a tool to go out and sit with especially churches. So we sat with a number of churches and we really spent some time. It was good to see pastors coming out, a number of sessions per week, just to engage with us and to learn some more about the topic. When we went into the communities, we realized that theater could be a very powerful tool that persons could learn from, but it could also become very triggering. And that is when someone could see themselves in whatever it is that is being performed.
Yes.
And so we've even had to assess some of the methods and tools that we've used based on the reactions that we've seen from community members, based on whatever we were portraying. And so we don't take lightly the initiatives that we do. We look at them, we do our reports, we sit down as a team, we reflect, and then we devise a strategy to go back out into the community again that would build upon what we started. So those are some of the things that we try to pay attention to as much as possible.
You listed quite a number of things that you were involved in the department. What's your staff complement?
So I have a staff complement of about 20 persons, 10 of which are technical officers, and the other 10, or I would say maybe 6, are support administrative assistants to the technical officers.
So for a lot of the programs that you mentioned, would it be the work is being done internally? You get a lot of external assistance. How does it?
So most of the work is done internally, but we do get a lot of support from our stakeholders. Mm-hmm. We have a number of persons, and we are so grateful, who have come forward all the time to say that they want to volunteer with the Directorate of Gender Affairs. So, for example, our one-stop center, we have advocates. We have mm-hmm. about 20 advocates who we trained, who basically come out at any time at night to provide support to persons who experience gender-based violence. We have NGO partners who would partner with us on a number of initiatives. So we do have that wide range of partnership pool that we can pull from, depending on what we are implementing.
Okay, and so we can now... No, one more question before we turn. One more.
No problem.
What are some of the challenges you face as a department in terms of executing your functions?
Okay, so
and your vision, more importantly.
Okay, so first of all, it's not a lot of us, which I just explained.
Right.
And so we are very stretched. So the same staff complement that would be responsible for that day-to-day policy revision process and all of that, it's the same staff who would go out into the communities, who you'd see on the front line as well. In addition to the policy process work that we do, we also operate a one-stop center every day within the office, 24 hours, in addition to a 24-hour hotline. So a lot of things...
You see my eyes. For those who my radio, my eyes are just darting all over the place. Because do you sleep?
Yes, I do.
How many hours? Like 3?
Well, that
4?
I won't say, but I do sleep.
Okay.
But yeah, so it becomes a little difficult for us to be able to manage all of that, but also to switch minds, especially for me. So I would have to provide guidance on a project that is related to gender and education, then provide guidance to a project related to gender and agriculture, then maybe to climate change, and then go back and give guidance to something that is related to the one-stop center. So it's a lot, right? So we do have to come up with, But in addition to that, though, the support and the commitment is there, right? From the ministry and also from the staff members. But another challenge is a lot of people don't understand and know and appreciate why we promote gender equality. So I think we have to spend a lot of time just listening to persons, the concerns that persons might have. A lot of people might not necessarily agree, so they might start off with, y'all focus too much on women.
Yeah, without
and we
an appreciation.
have to sit and we have to listen and we have to engage and we have to find a point of entry where we can get them to begin to see and understand and think differently about what we're doing and why it is important.
Right. I can see that in particular because even though I thought I knew and I prepped, I still got so much out of today already. So we now turn to, they're going to say women again, but it's not women alone that have gender violence.
No.
So your campaign that you're about to unveil, your annual 16 days of activism. That's the word that just fails me. Yes, 16 days of activism. Share with us what's behind. That's an international activity.
Definitely.
Right. So what prompts that activity?
So the international campaign basically started officially in 1991. There was a horrendous murder of, I think, a twin sister in Latin America, which basically ignited the spark for this type of global activism to be activated, basically. And so in 1991, the 16 Days of Activism campaign started, and it was basically launched by the United Nations as a campaign that would run from the 25th of November, which is the International Day for the Prevention of Violence, Elimination of Violence Against Women. And it runs from that date to the 10th of December, which is Human Rights Day. Within the campaign, we also commemorate the World AIDS Day, which happens on the 1st of December, and also the Day for Persons with Disabilities, which is the 3rd of December. So we would basically look at a campaign, and again, that is not by chance, because the work of gender is also about ensuring that we promote human rights and leave human rights at the center and at the heart of development. So having the World AIDS Day as part of our activism campaign and persons with disabilities, again, would show persons how much the work is broad in its scope, but also takes the different vulnerabilities of the population into consideration. So we will be commemorating this campaign. We are actually starting on the 23rd of November, and we are excited about the partnership that we'll be having with the Seventh-day Adventist Church. So we'll be partnering on a march, which will be called Steps to be Heard in National Silent Walk. It will not be an entirely silent walk, because persons have asked, so we can't say anything at all. Yes, you can come with your chants and so forth, but there'll be sections throughout the march where we'll be saying absolutely nothing. And then we'll have an outbreak of a flash mob, which will be done by Honeybee Theatre all throughout the march. So it will be something exciting, but also a serious event that would allow persons to come and demonstrate their commitment towards ending violence in all its forms.
All right, that's a good start.
I think so. And we're very excited. We have the Anglican Mothers Union on board now, so they have partnered with us along with the Rotaract group. So we're very excited about this initiative.
You're getting a broad base.
Yes.
The older groups, the Mothers Union, the younger groups, the Rotaract, and you have a large faith-based community.
Yes.
Advantage. You don't get bigger than that. That's good.
And then other groups will be joining as well.
What are some of the other activities that will be during the 16 days?
Okay, so we have a lot of activities for persons to participate in this year. We are going to be partnering with Spilling Ink. There'll be a Poetry in the Park event. So for persons who are interested in that, it's also on the 23rd. It is in the evening at Julie's, which is in town. So persons can attend that event. We're also going to be supporting the forum, Speaking of the Unspoken, The Single Mother, which is a production that will be done by Lily's Production at the Dean William Lake Cultural Center at 7 p.m. So persons can go to those events. The admission free for all of the events. On the 24th, we are encouraging persons to wear orange to church.
Oh, to church?
Yes, on the Sunday. Orange is the day.
Polo.
Orange is the color for the campaign.
I know, but to church?
Yes, wear your orange to church. And
Send
so
people shopping.
So, or you could wear an orange ribbon as well.
Okay, fine. I can live with the ribbon.
We'll be giving out shirts for the campaign as well. You have to register for the match to get a shirt. And so we are almost at the capacity for the shirts for the match. But persons can still send in their registration by calling our office. We also will be having I'm trying to see which events. Oh, this is an interesting one. We're partnering with the University of the West Indies. And we're going to be holding a panel with the Student Guild. And they will be talking about Generation Equality Stands Against Rape, which is the overall theme for the campaign, promoting safety on campus beyond 16 days. So that is going to be an interesting conversation and panel that they will be holding.
Interesting.
Okay. On the 28th of November, we'll be holding the Love Shouldn't Hurt. We would normally have Love Shouldn't Hurt during the Valentine's period, but we decided to bring it into 16 days this year. So persons can come out to Dean William Lake Cultural Center on the 28th of November from 6:30. It's also free. we'll have 5 secondary schools, drama groups performing, which will include the Antigua State College, Honeybee Theatre Group. We're also going to have the Jennings Secondary. We're also going to have, I think, the Clay Hall Secondary and the All Saints Secondary School. So all of these schools will be performing for us in addition to the Sugar Apple Group. So I think that person should come out and enjoy the dialogue and then to enjoy the performances that we'll be seeing.
Will it just be performances? I know sometimes when you have these, you'll have like the question and answer
Yes,
section.
we're going to have a dialogue.
Oh,
so
okay.
persons can actually write questions, and we're going to be coming through the audience just for persons to engage with the performances that they saw on the night.
A question. In past years, how has the support been for the 16 days?
Very great. We're so grateful for the communities and the public. I think 2 years ago, basically, we had community groups. How we did 16 days, we asked community groups and we asked NGOs to let us know what activities they wanted us to support.
Okay.
And so they organized a number of things. We were in Bowlands, we were in Erlins, we were in Clay Hall. We were across the island, basically supporting activities and initiatives from communities. This year, what we decided to do, all of the stakeholders that we work along with, we invited them in and we basically asked them if they would like to take a day. So, for example, Women Against Rape will be holding an activity called the Civil Society Lobby Day. That is on the 2nd of December. They're basically organizing groups to go out and hold meetings with ministers, with permanent secretaries and so forth, to hold them accountable to legislative changes, to policy changes, and to programs and so forth that would either
Antigua sounds hot.
that would either address or eliminate the issue or to respond in a more coordinated way.
Did I ask you about when you sleep? You and your team?
We sleep.
Oh, okay.
We're just not going to tell you how many hours.
Okay.
We're also having an exciting event. It's called Ladies We Need to Talk. This is for persons 35 years old, 35 years and older. So this event is basically, we're doing it in collaboration with Janice Sutherland. And the event is basically going to look at issues that persons within that age range and up face, right? So we are going to be meeting at the Nomads conference room on the 29th of November, and we're starting from around 6:30 p.m.
There's a fee for that?
No fee, no registration.
No registration?
No.
Yeah. How many persons Nomad room holds? Sorry.
So I think the capacity is around 50, but we're targeting for 50 persons. So if you come, we would definitely make a space for you.
Okay. Ladies, we need to talk.
Yes.
Persons 35 years old and over.
Yes.
That sounds interesting. I'm not giving them an age, but it sounds interesting.
Yes, you should come. We're also going to be holding the open house, right? We're going to open our doors. A lot of persons have heard about this one-stop center in
because
Antigua.
I have a big note here. Where are you located? I got that there on the social media in my inbox, and
No
I
problem.
have it on my phone.
A lot of people heard about the one-stop center in Antigua and Barbuda, and they don't know where it is. They don't know what we
exactly
do
does.
and so forth. And when we open the doors to persons to come in to get a tour, they're always blown away at how much we put thought into the needs of our survivors. Right?
Confession. I've referred people, but I've never been.
Well,
Okay,
you need
carry
to
on.
come. You should come to the open house.
I refer people all the time.
And this time around, we're holding a barbecue. So even if you're on your lunch break, you can come and you'll get some barbecue, okay? So we're located on the corner of Friendly Alley and Nevis Street. So persons could come down. The House of Culture is right opposite us. We're right there on the corner behind by the car park. You can't miss us.
The pink building.
That's where we are.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yes.
So
people, y'all know where that is? Just remember the big red building for culture. The building right below that. The pink building. Pink. Yes. Right there.
So we're inviting persons to come and see the one-stop center. You will get to see our counseling room. You'll get to see our child-friendly room. You'll get to see our doctor's room where we provide the medical services.
It sounds like you have a fancy setup over there.
Will get
where you
to
find money
see,
for all that?
You will get to see our interview rooms where we meet with our clients. You'll get to see where they sit if they have a case in court. and they would like to give evidence remotely, we do have the facility that accommodates them giving their evidence into the court remotely without having to face the accused person.
And go over that again.
All of that is a part of the sexual offences model code that was launched in Antigua and Barbuda in January. So in the support and referral center, we do have a space carved out where the prosecutor can apply for someone to be considered a vulnerable witness, especially children.
Okay.
So in those cases, rather than having to go into the court to face the accused person to give their evidence, we can set up for the facility to be done and for that to be done from our location.
I'm impressed.
So they would sit on the couch.
We have that in Antigua.
They would look into the...
Okay, I'm bringing my cameras in that open
Please
day.
do.
I'm coming. Jupiter, we're going to open day.
Yeah, so you would get to see all of that. You'll get to see our shower area where persons would shower and so forth, because especially
All in that building on the road?
all in that building. You'll get to see all of those things. You'll get to understand what we do so that you can assist us in referring persons when they need assistance.
When they butt up my head too much, and I mean it in a positive way, I don't know what to do. Referral center number, here it is. It's saved in my phone.
Yes, and then we have our hotline, so you can also come and interface with the persons who would manage the hotline as well. So that is the open day on the 3rd of December. Between 9 and 3 p.m., I think everyone should come and experience to see the one-stop center.
Saving that in my
so
phone
that
now
they
as
can
we
assist
speak.
us to make referrals. Another event that I wanted to highlight is our Support and Referral Center conference, because one of the role that the
Conference?
Yes, we'll be holding a conference. The conference will be held on the 6th and 7th of December. On the 6th of December, we're basically targeting persons who provide psychosocial services. So, for example, counselors, advocates, and so forth, support personnel. And on the 7th, we're inviting community leaders. So anyone from the community who would like to come and learn about how they can provide support to someone who might come and disclose to them. You can come to the conference. We'll have a day of just going through different techniques. You'll hear from survivors themselves. You'll hear from counselors. You'll understand, how do I provide basic intervention and support to someone who might not want to report to the police,
Right.
but they just want to tell you, how can you provide support with them to ensure that they continue to heal and to recover from what they're going through. So for that conference, you definitely need to reserve a spot, because we're only catering for 40 persons for each day. If you contact the Directorate of Gender Affairs either through our social media spaces or give us a call at 462-3990, we will send you all of the registration details. I think the first day is almost full.
Of course. This is
But
something
the
very
second
important.
day, the 7th, which is the community day where anyone could attend, we definitely have some more spaces available.
Okay. So that's the 6th and the 7th. We have
Yes.
2 more days. No, we have a couple of days left. There's
We
finishes
have
on the
a lot
10th.
more days. Wait, I jumped. I want to go back to the 30th of November. On that day, we are partnering with the Happy Heights.
Happy Heights, yes.
Happy Heights.
Yes.
So we're going
I
to
know
do
him.
a hike, and we're so happy because he was one of the stakeholders that we've worked with to organize hiking therapy for our clients. And so
Hiking is awesome therapy.
yes,
Can I tell
we
you? It
offer a
de-stresses.
yes. It is. And so we're putting on a free hike so persons could sign up with us. The hike is on the 30th of November from 5:30 a.m. It's called a violence-free walking towards journey to the future, a violence-free Antigua and Barbuda. We're encouraging persons to wear different colors. So we're orange if you're optimistic that we will end gender-based violence. We're teal if you're currently supporting the healing and recovery of someone. And we're purple if you're remembering someone who lost their life at the hands of
Sounds like
violence.
I need to combine the 3 colors.
Persons could do that as well. That's an awesome idea. But so I'm encouraging persons to also register for this hike. It will be a great activity.
I wonder where he's. Do you have the route?
We're starting from Wallens Nature Reserve and we're ending at Signal Hill. I don't know what
cool.
the route.
Yes, I know.
You know.
I can help you with
I
that.
just pray that I will survive.
It's nice and It's uphill.
Ooh.
It's a little of a challenge, but you can take the pace, and it's the views when you get there will be worth every step.
I hope so.
I hope it doesn't rain.
I understand it's our second highest point, so I'm very excited about that.
It is. Just get your boots and let's go. Or your track
God.
shoes and let's go. It's gonna be nice.
I'm going
unless
to be
it
there. I
rains.
just hope I make it.
Unless
Okay,
it rains. That
this-
sounds like I should join y'all for that.
Definitely.
5:30.
Yes. And if you like yoga, there's a yoga event. The yoga event happens on, I'm just trying to pull that up. The yoga event will be happening on the 2nd of December. It's called Free Your Mind Yoga, a yoga and sound bath experience. We'll be offering 2 sessions. It's also free. We're partnering with Yoga Antigua, so it will be held at the shed at Sugar Ridge.
I was just gonna say that sounds like a Sugar Ridge thing.
Yes, so session 1 on the 2nd of December starts from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Session 2 starts from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m.
In other words, there are a plethora of activities and events.
Yes.
You can pick and choose what your preference is.
Yes.
But at the same time, we all recognize that it's part of the 16 Days of Activism.
Yes.
I have a question. Well, I don't know if it's a question or a statement. How does the Director of Gender Affairs have a role to play in, because you mentioned court,
Yes.
and a couple of things popped into my mind. I'm going to give a scenario and see, I don't know how the Directorate will play into something like that. Woman is abused, beaten, it's reported, it goes into the court system. Woman decides on the day of the case that she doesn't want to testify. Woman then gets lectured heatedly, threatened even by the magistrate or the judge about the fact that she could get thrown into I'm sure that sounds like, I don't know if that sounds like in any instances. I've read it in the papers a number of times. Who counsels a woman like that? Is there any mechanism through which a woman like that, because it's been my observation that oftentimes the woman doesn't just decide she no longer wants to testify. It's either out of fear, out of economic need, something. But to my mind, it never seems to get taken into account by the legal authorities in something like that. What is there anything? I don't know.
So yes, and I think that has been something that we've even engaged with on the departmental level when we engage with our stakeholders, because we do have a coordination meeting that happens every quarter with all of the stakeholders, including our Office of the Director of Public Prosecutors and so forth.
Somebody need to talk to the magistrates.
So we do have regular conversations with our stakeholders to see how we can improve what we're doing, because as you rightfully said, when someone decides, or if someone would have to make a decision to decide that they want to withdraw, it must be on account of something. And so one of the things that I wanted to say is it doesn't start from the court system. And that's where a lot of people look for or try to make a judgment or statement about the quality of support that is given. But it starts from the point at which a report is made initially, which is normally through the police, or it's normally through one of the stakeholder groups.
Right.
So it could be through Gender Affairs, it could be through 911, which would go into the police. It could be through an NGO such as Women Against Rape. So normally there's an entry point, basically, where the report is made. Once a report is made, it is the responsibility of that agency to ensure that they connect that person with all of the support services through referrals, right? So we know
that system doesn't work
well
as it
doesn't,
should. Let me
there are some
rephrase, because
loopholes, but we have definitely made significant progress.
Okay.
And since we've launched the Support and Referral Center in 2017, we've not just launched the center and say people come to the center, but a lot of work that people might not see on the outside.
Because you can't speak, it's better not spoken of.
Yes, but what we do is that we hold coordination meetings every quarter where we invite the police, we invite the medical persons, we invite the advocates, we invite everyone who is a part of the response, and we've set standards for persons to use when they're dealing with persons who experience violence. And so we are aware of some of these issues that might occur. We operate using a client-centered approach. So if an adult decides that they no longer wish to go forward with the case, it is within that person's right to do. From the client-centered approach that we promote. But we also need to interrogate the reasons and factors that led the person to make such a decision in the first instance. And as you alluded to, it might be lack of support. And so we need to examine, because no one should be going through the court process without that support system. If they don't want one of the counselors from our system, then they should be referred to a support person from the community that they're more comfortable with. It might be someone from their church, it might be someone from their family, but as much as possible, persons should receive support as they're going through the legal process. One of the things that was also introduced with the Sexual Offences Court is guidelines. So there are some guidelines that should be used within the High Court by the judge who presides over the sexual offences matters. That judge is basically responsible for ensuring that they direct the proceedings, that they ensure that all of the guidelines are followed.
So they're the managers of the process.
Basically. So there's an entire case management process that is followed, that the judge ensures that the standards are kept within that process. So we do know that there are lots of loopholes and lots of things that could happen, but as much as possible, we try to work in coordination to tighten the support that someone should receive.
Last question, I promise. I hope. And I've kept you way over your half an hour that I had proposed. No, there has been discussions off and on about children being able to decide that they don't want a matter to go forward. What's the, and I listen. These are, as I'm pretty vocal, and once those discussions start, I crawl into a hole and just watch, because I'm not sure that we are au fait generally with. I know there's the Right to the Child Convention and but who determines on behalf of a child? Does the child determine for his or herself? Is the parent responsible? What happens when the parent is part of the problem? How do we protect our children?
So in matters like this, I would normally defer to the Family and Social Services, right?
Okay,
Since my agency would respond to adults, cases,
okay, fair
18
enough.
and over. But I could share some information as well from our perspective. It's slightly different for children. We do promote the client-centered approach. The Rights of the Child Convention also takes into account the voice of the child and the preferences of that child within the circumstances. But we do know that the state has a duty to protect children and to ensure that the violation of children is dealt with through the justice system. And so what we need to do is to find ways in which we build up our cases and we gather the evidence that is adequate enough for us to move forward, even without having the child within the court system physically to give evidence. And so there are different models of that. I mean, if you look at what they do in South Africa as well, why they've managed to have higher conviction rates, even among children, is they try as much as possible to rely on other things apart from just the evidence that the child is bringing forward. So you call into question the medical report, the witness report, and even pre-recording statements from the child. So anything that would protect the child from having to go through such a gruesome process, but also maintaining the duty of the state to ensure that the violation is dealt with
we are moving in that direction.
Yes.
Excellent. All right. Well, Farmala, reluctantly, I'm going to bring this. I mean, it's been a treasure trove of information. You see, I had 3 questions at the start of this discussion. This is my sheet now, and this is just, I don't know if you can see, because the questions are just going all over, and the mind is ticking. But I think first, let me congratulate you and your team. I think the work that you do, many of us don't even begin to appreciate the expanse and the depth of the work that you and your team do. I don't know about you, and you're under 35. Okay, you're under 35 in biological years, so we will just add up the years of experience and other things and see what your real age is. I do this all the way. I do this to Can, I do this to Zara, I do it to Owen Jackson, and now I'm going to do it to you, because y'all do so much work that there's just so much more years that beyond your biological scope. So I have to commend you and your team. On behalf of everyone listening into We're the Ones, I think I'm safe to say that we learned a lot today. Some of us would have had various degrees of knowledge about the Director of Gender Affairs and the work that is done. So I want to thank you for taking the time and to be so clear. There was no hesitation. It means that you know your stuff inside out. Okay, so now I need you to close your ears for me for 2 seconds, about 15 seconds. I get a girl the Emmy, the Grammy, whatever it is that I want for Gishi, and just take off the acting jack. Jeez, man, this is a lot of work. Okay, now, right. Okay, now, Farmala, we're back. Yes, brought you back. I just didn't want to get you caught up in that thing there. Yes. And then now, looking at the 16 days of activism, which I think I think I first paid real attention about 3 years ago. I have been one of the hardest converts to gender affairs. You wouldn't believe it. Yeah, I know. It sounds weird. Community worker, blah, blah, blah. Because like a lot of people, I felt, even though I'm female, that there were times when I felt that it wasn't enough being done. And then there were times when I felt, listen, but over the years, I have become fully appreciative of the scope of what is necessary to be done and the work that is done. And so like for the 16 days, I normally am very in tune with the AIDS day. Yes. That day, I don't have a choice. The sister's the boss there. Yeah. And so and you follow disability and so on. But when you begin to look at the entire picture and the work that is done, and not only the work that is done, you've seen the impact of the work of the department over time in terms of impacting on the lives of our citizens. I'm going to be honest now. I used to do a lot more work with people who are disadvantaged and so on. I don't bother now. I just give them the number. I'm sorry. I just gladly pass. And guess what? The reward for hard work, darling, is more hard work. I have some more people to pass. No, it's comforting to know that there are systems in place that work and that are capable of taking us to the next level. So I'm making a promise to my listeners, viewers, that come the open day, that we're going to come through. And for those who will not be able to make it, we're going to attempt to cover some of what is there and then bring it either, I don't know if we'll be able to do it live, I'll talk to APU about that, or we will then show it at another time so that more of the community begins to appreciate and become aware and sensitized as to the important work. Because our standard of living is, the best of us is the worst of us. And here we have opportunities that are lifting up the worst among us and the most vulnerable and so on. And I think we should become more aware and give you support. I think the critical thing is support. So I want to thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to We're the Ones, and we had the acting director. See, I'm going to deputize you. Director of the Department of Gender Affairs. I make sure I get it right. And we have been discussing the work that Gender Affairs is doing and the upcoming 16 days of activism against domestic violence. Farmala, thank you very much. Thank you. I'm bringing you back. I don't know when yet. Fine. Not now. Let us, because I want to talk numbers. So when I'm going to alert you, that we want to talk the data and let people see where we're going and the feedback, the notes, the things that are circled. So thank you very much for joining me, and I wish you continued success with your very important initiatives, and all the best.
Thank you. Yes. And thank you to your listeners.
All right. So yes, we're getting feedback. I'll leave my phone alone. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Our last, I think today has been most interesting and most productive, and I thank both Mr. Vermont and Miss Jacobs. Between them, I think they've done 100 years of service. I kid you not, in service to our nation. And of course, we're the ones celebrate the bottom. Just pull the bottom, I hope. Oh, turn again. Yes, sorry about that. We're the ones celebrate and share. I think it's important that as a community we become familiar and knowledgeable as to the work that's happening in our community. Too many times we spend on the negatives. This doesn't work, that is broken, da 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 da. And I'm pleased today to have been able to have two workers in our community who have been committed to ensuring that they make a change and impact positively the lives of our women, our youth, our vulnerable, I think I covered everybody in that one statement. And so this is We're the Ones. Today, again, I want to thank you for tuning in, whether via radio or via Facebook. And we look forward to having continued dialogue. And this is We're the Ones signing out. See you all next week. And I did the wrong thing. There you go.
This is Point FM